Welcome to the show. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's episode. This show has been a long time coming. The essential oils conversation and desire to educate you and to let you know about the power of essential oils has been on my mind since I first launched back in 2014. And as you'll hear me talk about on the show today, it's been a challenge to find somebody who I trust in their research and their education in order to really deliver a powerful show that we're going to do today. So I appreciate that it's been a long time, and here it is finally. I also want to let you know that this conversation won't end past today. One of the things that I have set out to do in the Inner Circle membership, that's the $9.99 a month membership, is to also utilize that podcast to educate you more on specific essential oils. So we're going to go down the rabbit hole of learning about different essential oils and take the momentum created today and keep going. So expect in February at least 1 or 2 shows specifically about the medicinal uses of essential oils. Today we talk a little bit about many of them: basil, cilantro, lavender. We spent a lot of time on lavender, but we're going to go deeper on some solo shows within the Inner Circle. So if that's of interest to you, I know for a lot of you, listening to things is better than reading things. So that's one of the benefits of being part of the Inner Circle membership, is that you're going to be taken on an educational journey on some of the shows that I'm going to do, deepening the work we do here on the regular show. So today's guest is Dr. Eric ZIELINSKI. He is the author of the national bestseller, The Healing Power of Essential Oils and the Essential Oils Diet. Commonly referred to as Dr. Z, he has pioneered natural living and biblical health education since 2003. Trained as an aromatherapist, public health researcher, and chiropractor, Dr. Z started naturallivingfamily.com in 2014 with his wife, Sabrina Ann, to help people learn how to safely and effectively use natural remedies such as essential oils. Now visited by more than 7 million natural health seekers every year, naturallivingfamily.com has rapidly become the #1 online source for biblical health and non-branded essential oils education. Welcome to the show, Dr. Z.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this because this should have happened like 5 times. Kept on rescheduling. Life happened, but yeah, I love it. Can't wait. I'm really excited about this one.
Good. Well, it's divine timing. It all worked out the way it was supposed to.
Amen.
Absolutely. So, one of the reasons why you referred to me and I was interested in the topic that we are going to talk about, or at least start the show off with, is essential oils. Because in the years that I've had the show, and while I am a huge essential oil believer, user, and recommend it all the time, I've never done a show on it. And I think mostly it's because most of the people who deal with essential oils are just the distributors from a company. They're not necessarily the clinicians or the people who've created them. And your story, from what I understand, is that you aren't necessarily supporting one brand. You're just talking about the whole science behind essential oils and their effect on your health. So why don't we start off by getting into your story and how you even got to the place where you started using essential oils or focusing on a business around that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I'm the proverb, I'm the last man standing here. As far as I know, I'm the last independent researcher that makes a living researching and discussing about the therapeutic effects of essential oils without selling them. And that's really important because, when I went to public health school, this is straight up public health 101, financial bias. And it's not to criticize anyone, because thank God for network marketing. Really, I love it. I think it's a very pure business model. But when 99.9% of all the information online that you see are written by distributors, bloggers, or organizations that have affiliate links that send out to various companies, it skews your data. It really does. And it makes people wonder, who can I trust? So long story short is that essential oils were not part of my healing journey at all. I was just dramatically healed through prayer, meditation. I was clinically depressed, suicidal thoughts. I had horrible gut issues, cystic acne. I was a wreck. I medicated self-medicated chronic pain through narcotics, alcoholism, And when I was a young adult, I'll never forget going to a neurosurgeon who took an MRI on my spine and said, "What did you do to yourself? You have a back of a 50-year-old." And I was, 22 years old, and I didn't know. I mean, I can trace back, and I have some theories about what happened to me, but I was not well. Well, I had a dramatic transformation, a very spiritual epiphany when I became a Christian. And there's a verse that talks about our bodies being the temple. They are a temple, and you need to take care of it. And so I started eating better. I started researching deep. And this was 16 some years ago now, almost 17 years ago. And everything changed, from the body care products to the foods that I ate and things that I drank. Of course, thank God I quit smoking and drinking, didn't do drugs anymore. All of my life changed. But essential oils weren't part of it at all, until I met my wife. And my wife, she has her own healing story with essential oils that started 26 years ago when she had a chemical burn on her face. And her mom's friend, who was an Ojibwa, and still is an Chippewa Indian practicing Ojibwa medicine, gave her her first essential oil kit. And it was lavender that really helped heal her skin. I mean, she burned the first 3 layers of her skin off from the bridge of her nose down to her neck. And so, when we got married, my wife did her thing. And I love my wife. She's beautiful. She always smells great, but I just thought it was smelly stuff. And I kind of jest, but I'm not going to go play beach volleyball with my guy friends smelling like ylang ylang. We'll take my guy card away. So I never really thought about essential oils until one of my clients at the time, because I was a medical writer, and one of my clients commissioned me to write a series of public health reports about the therapeutic efficacy of essential oils. And that was my job, my job, to read hundreds of studies about blood pressure, blood sugar, cancer, pain, all sorts of things, dementia, brain health, and you name it. I had to study it. And I wrote report after report after report. And it's kind of funny. And you know how women can be. And like, hey, I went to my wife, Sabrina. I'm like, did you know this? She's like, yeah, told you so. Yeah. Did you know this? Yeah. I'm like, why didn't you tell me this? She goes, I tried. You didn't listen. I'm like, you're right. And so we kind of have this, like, for us, we actually connected deeper. Spiritually together, we connected emotionally, we connected mentally, that there was a passion of hers that I now was able to jive with. So now her and I started teaching essential oil classes together. I'm the researcher. She's the practical DIY, the Mama Z, I'm the Dr. Z. And it kind of catapulted this online ministry that we wrote best-selling books in 10 different languages. We hosted a telesummit with 165,000 people. I'm featuring an upcoming documentary that's going to be featured globally on essential oils with my family. Well, we're featured all over TV and radio. Like, wow, So it was kind of like I didn't choose essential oils. Essential oils kind of chose me.
Well, that's amazing. And there's so much to talk about on the show. I don't think we're going to get to all of it, and we may have to have you back because there's the spiritual, there's the business side, there's that divine timing, because I really do want to talk about essential oils from that perspective, like you said, of the researcher and having information about it and not necessarily being attached to one particular company and one particular, let's say, way of thinking about a product and selling a product. And you mentioned lavender and helping with burns on the face. I've often heard that you're not supposed to put essential oils directly on your face. And so before we get too far deep into other things, can you address that?
Oh yeah. It's all about dilution. You never, ever, unless we're talking combat medicine. Let's kind of go back a little bit. Let's go back 50, 60, actually, no, not 50, 70, 80 years. Combat medicine, World War I, World War II, the medics on the front lines of the battlefield were using essential oils to prevent gangrene and infection. Oregano, thyme, tea tree, lavender. Then the antibiotic came in the mid-40s, and that changed the world. Okay. So using essential oils for emergency medicine, you do what you got to do, right? But if you're at home, like all of us hopefully are right now listening, most of us, if you want to use essential oils, you always want to dilute them with a carrier oil, which could be as simple as getting out your coconut oil or your olive oil from your kitchen. Or if you want to get fancy and get some more typical aromatherapy oils, that's sweet almond, jojoba, shea butter, fractionated coconut oil, the list goes on. But I'm convinced that our bodies have not been designed by God to interact with these potent plant-based chemicals in its pure, unadulterated form without diluting them. It can be dangerous. And what we see people today are using essential oils, putting them straight on their skin. It's also known as NEAT. And it's causing what's known as sensitization. It's a contact dermatitis. It's just too much. Like, you're not going to walk into a lavender field and see a pool of lavender. It takes roughly 3 to 5 pounds of lavender flowers. Just think about that. Just get one itty bitty bottle of lavender. So yes, they're natural, but they have to be steam distilled, and so they're very concentrated. But again, going back to World War I, World War II, if you're on the front lines and if you're bleeding, if you just cut off your arm, you got to do what you got to do. But for those of us who aren't dealing with emergency situations, you dilute them. And that's what we teach in our books. I mean, it's very simple. It's simple math. It's dilution. It's conversions. It's not hard. But yes, to answer your question, you can apply oils on your face. You just want to make sure that it's less than a 1% dilution, which is roughly 6 drops of essential oil per ounce of carrier. That's the rule of thumb for the face, or less. Same thing with babies. Babies we want to treat because they have very sensitive skin, less than 1% dilution. But when you're treating a tumor, and people do, you could go higher. You could add more essential oils, but you never just want to just slather frankincense on a mole and have that be something that you do every day. I mean, that could cause a problem.
I have to ask because it's something I've been introduced to and actually have done. So I know that there are some essential oil companies out there that are food grade and some that aren't, or a lot that aren't, and a few that are food grade. Can we talk about that in terms of ingesting them? Because things like frankincense for a tumor, for instance, talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know where the confusion came from. Well, first of all, there's no such thing as a food grade or therapeutic grade or medicinal grade. These are marketing terms. And the reason why there's no such thing as it is because there's no third-party governing agency. Essentially, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, doesn't monitor what's on the market at all. And so the label you can't trust. Because some companies say it's a therapeutic grade. It doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. So what we're looking at is purity. If an essential oil is pure, which means it has no adulterants, no chemicals, no additives, then theoretically that is safe to ingest if they are included in the list of safe oils to ingest. And there's a huge list. Just go to the FDA website, type up essential oils, FDA. There are 150 plus oils that are used as food additives. And that's where I want to bring people back. What do you think flavors your peppermint mint patty? What do you think flavors your gum, your ice cream? Anything that says flavor in it, it's either an essential oil or a synthetic version of an essential oil. That's exactly what food flavorings are. Now, natural food flavorings are essential oil based. Synthetic, artificial are the fake version of that, and they can cause a problem. So the point is, it's dosage. No one knows the proprietary blend of essential oils that flavor your Coca-Cola. But what do you think flavors your Coca-Cola? It's like, oh, wow, really? Yeah, a little bit of clove, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right? So what we're talking about is what the body can sustain. And the body cannot sustain 15, 20 drops of essential oil in a gel capsule 5 times a day. So when you go to Pinterest to get your medical advice, which you never do, and you see these morphine bombs, the whatever flu bomb stuff, that's ridiculous. Like, we got to get back and realize that if you're going to treat an essential oil and use it like a drug, it can have drug interactions. And if someone's on a drug like warfarin, like a blood thinner, you want to stay away from clove because that could cause you to hemorrhage internally. Whoever taught you that? You're not learning that on Pinterest. And that freaks me out because people are using essential oils as medicine, which they can be, but they're not thinking about all the different factors. So yes, they are safe to use. And there's nothing like a drop of cilantro and a drop of lime in your guacamole. It's like heaven. It really is. It's like, are you kidding me? I love my soda. I haven't had soda pop in 16 years. I get a little bit of liquid stevia, a drop of grapefruit, or a drop of lemon with some sparkling water that we make at home. Boom. Love it. But that's what we do. I'm drinking my matcha green tea latte. We wrote our book, The Essential Oils Diet, that just came out a few months ago. I love matcha green tea. You add a drop of peppermint. You add a drop of cinnamon bark. We're talking this helps balance blood sugar. It helps curb cravings. It gives you energy boost, and they're full of antioxidants. So again, 1 or 2 drops here or there. And it's worthwhile to do a little research to figure out, okay, what should and shouldn't I do? So long answer to a short question, but the biggest issue right now in aromatherapy, and I have it on record, because the school that I went to, the Atlantic Institute of Aromatherapy, is run by Scylla Shepherd-Hanger, who's been an aromatherapist for 40 years. And she told me the history of what happened. True aromatherapy, pure, real aromatherapy, uses essential oils, very potent, or uses them for medicinal purposes, including anal suppositories, including sublingual, including you name it, they use it. I mean, this is medicine. The problem is, and this is what Scylla told me, was when multi-level marketing came out, and then you have everyone teaching now people how to use essential oils, untrained people that are trying to either make a dollar or just spread the word, this mass awareness of unsafe use started to happen. And so what happened was, it was almost like a concerted effort. Aromatherapy schools started to tighten up their lip about internal use because they're trying to balance the unbalance by saying, okay, don't ingest where everyone's saying ingest. So we're trying to create a balance here. It was really wild. And I was talking to Scylla about that. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Two wrongs don't make a right. She was like, you're right. We need to teach people the right way. But the problem is there's so much false teaching out there. So you go and half the aromatherapy schools teach that ingestion isn't safe, but that's not what I see in my text. That's not what I see in history. That's not what common sense tells me, because out of all the essential oils, this is key for those people who love data, of all the essential oils manufactured in the planet, 50% are used, consumed by the food and flavor industry. What does that tell you? Very only a small percentage are actually used by the aromatherapy industry, including doTERRA, Young Living, and the big companies. Right? Essential oils are used in your textiles, used in your building supplies, used in your cleaning supplies, used in you name it, air fresheners, right? All that stuff. So anyway, very safe to ingest if you do it properly, and just a little common sense goes a long way.
Well, let's address some of the key, let's say, ailments that people can use essential oils for. So we already heard through what you had talked about with your wife and the skin burn, and using lavender oil, probably in wet fractionated coconut oil that she did. Maybe there was a combination of oils, but I'd love to hear some of the top, the easiest things, like for me. So I'll tell you some of the things that I use. So for me, peppermint for a headache, putting some peppermint in my hand and then inhaling a few times. Really, if I never get headaches, usually headache means from the emotional place of overwhelm, but so I don't get headaches that often, but in the case that I do, I use peppermint. Same thing for lavender if I'm trying to fall asleep, or if I want to decompress, using lavender in my diffuser or on my feet, at the bottom of my feet. So let's talk about some of those things people can use essential oils for that you have found are like the easiest, most common things that we can replace a drug or an over-counter chemical that someone might be using.
Yeah, that's a good question. There is more and more research happening and being done on the therapeutic efficacy on human trials. What we have is a predominance of research, in vitro research, cells in a petri dish. We have a lot of animal trials, but very, very few studies when it comes to using essential oils on cancer on human patients and other diseases. So I want to refer back to that. I want to refer back to what we know, but also refer back to what tradition has told us for centuries. And what tradition has told us, and what research confirms, pain and mood issues are the top two that always come up over and over and over again when it comes to using essential oils. And mood issues meaning depression, anxiety, and stress. Like nothing can stop a panic attack like bergamot or neroli. Nothing can boost a mood, proven, like lime, orange, lemon, grapefruit. Citrus oils are key for mood boosting. And in the same token, nothing can be as anti-inflammatory and soothe pain or inflammation like peppermint, copaiba, frankincense, marjoram, basil, and the list goes on too. So when it comes down to it, pain issues, which include headaches, migraines, chronic pain, arthritis, neuralgia, all these things, and also mood boosting, which arguably could be two of the biggest issues that we're dealing with, especially in America, with the opioid crisis, with the mental health and mental illness crisis that we're dealing with. I mean, people can argue that mental health, if we could help boost someone's mental health, give them joy and balance and peace, if we can help reduce chronic inflammation with pain, we'll see diseases like cancer just fade away. We'll see diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia just not be as prevalent as they are today. How linked they are to inflammation, how linked they are to mental disorders, right? And so to me, those are the two big ones. And it's wonderful because when you're using essential oils the right way, you get the olfactory benefit when you inhale them, and you have an immediate impact on your limbic system, your primal brain, where your mood, your emotions, your memory lie. But also when you apply them topically in the right way, within minutes, the chemicals of the essential oils penetrate into your bloodstream. Within minutes. That's proven by research, by the way, too. And so you get this 2-for-1 benefit. So I will tell you, though, on a side note, I rarely use essential oils internally for therapeutic purposes, like unless I'm dealing with like the flu or something like that. It's very rare when I ingest essential oils to enhance my food, my flavor, that sort of thing. But when it comes down to it, you could do most of what you need by applying them topically and by inhaling them properly.
Well, I am a specific case. So, and what I was working with them for, I've done essential oils for 20 years in different ways. And even back in the day, did an MLM that had essential oils as part of their line of products. And before I decided if I was going to work with them or not, I went to, I think it was in Utah. I think I went to the plant and there was education and there was a physician and I have his book. It was on essential oils and they'd make blends for things like sleep and for muscles and all things that you're talking about and headaches and respiratory things. And there was never any talk about ingesting. And it was only in the last 6 months that someone recommended frankincense to be ingested. And so past that, even though, or maybe I think in the past, I listen to my body all the time. We do muscle testing and I'm pretty intuitive and I teach people how to do that. And at one point, whether it be nausea, or something that I had that I wanted some peppermint, it did immediately change. So I don't ingest them all the time. But it was this conversation of food grade versus non-food grade, which as you just dispelled is a myth and a marketing term. But it's also just how pure something is. And if someone's calling their product food grade, then maybe I can trust it might be more pure. Would that be something I could maybe assume?
No, I mean, I hate to say it, labels are useless. And you know what? We see this more in the CBD industry. And I hate to say it, but my brother, because he lives in Michigan, recreational use is legal now. So everyone has a dispensary now. He went to a local CBD shop. He bought this brand of oil that he used. It's again CBD oil. And he ingested it for something that he was trying to take care of. And within an hour or so, he started hallucinating. He actually called the hospital, or he called the emergency, and he got, or 911 or something, and he ended up getting like an ambulance, go to the emergency room to get his stomach pumped. And I was asking him, he showed me a picture of the bottle. They didn't have a label. The label had no instructions of dosage. He did what he thought, but the label, I mean, I'm quite frankly, it was like a psychedelic Cheech and Chong thing. I looked at him, I'm like, okay. I kind of laughed at myself. I'm like, I showed him the label that I use of CBD versus the label that he had. The one that I have is professional. There's dosing in there, whatever. But, it wasn't, bottom line, what he had wasn't pure CBD, because CBD won't get you high. It was laced with THC. It wasn't a pure product. So at the end of the day, especially CBD and essential oils and supplements, you really can't trust what the label says. You got to do a little deeper research. And here's the nice thing about essential oils and what the industry as itself, because the industry has been self-regulating. All the companies right now, I don't want to say all, but most good companies that I know of are very transparent. And you go online and they have batch specific reports on their website. So if you want to buy orange oil or frankincense, for example, you go to XYZ company, you click on the orange oil button, you should see the GCMS, the gas chromatography mass spectrometry report. What's that? It's a fancy way of saying it's the essential oils blood panel. Now, I get it. Anyone can go to the Ready Lab now next door and get their cardiovascular disease risk panel. Like, we all can do it. Not that I expect you to be an expert or you're not a cardiologist, but when you get that blood panel back, it will tell you within normal limits, without normal limits. That's all you want. You want the report to tell you yay or nay. That's basically what the GCMS will do. It is a report done by a third party that company pays for. doTERRA and Young Living and these companies like Eden Gardens, they pay millions of dollars to have their products tested by third party because no one else is doing it beside them. These third party companies will give them a report of what's in the oil. And typically there's like the quote executive report that says within normal limits, adulterants detected, everything is good. That's the level of transparency that we need, especially for people that are using CBD or essential oils for therapeutic medicinal purposes. That means more to me than any label, because whether it says therapeutic grade, medicinal grade, this grade, that grade, THC, no THC, CBD, all that stuff doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter because the label can say whatever the label says because no one's managing that. No one's monitoring that until, God forbid, someone dies. Then the FDA gets involved. So that is the quote kind of scary thing that we're dealing with in the health industry, is that anyone can say whatever they say and make wild claims.
Oh, I experience that all the time in the fitness industry. Don't you worry. There
Hmm.
is so much BS that's not backed in any kind of science that people spout out and say. And it's amazing to me, especially when it comes to exercise, like literally force and movement and the involvement of muscles and a neurological connection. Just the things that I hear. There's so many people talking about exercises that do X, Y, and Z that have no physiology background and no biomechanics understanding. And then I want to say to myself, do you have, or even physics? Oh my God, physics. That's one that trainers aren't science based because there's no regulating, body of education, so to speak. There's certifications, but they're not all in agreement and they're all teaching sort of different things. And most of them just want you to, again, like you said, stay safe and make sure you don't get sued. But in terms of the science, you have to kind of go out and find that yourself. And so I hear you on in the fitness industry as sort of a comparison here to essential oils. A little bit different is in that obviously we're looking at essential oils as there's such a marketing message of safety amongst all of it versus no one's really looking at, oh, I didn't think that essential oil wasn't safe. It's almost like because it's an essential oil, we just assume that every essential oil that I buy, no matter where I buy it from or who I buy it from, is probably good for me. And that's probably where it gets dangerous, especially if you are going to use it in potential food preparation, or like you said, in more extreme cases where the concentration is higher and now we have a bigger risk if there's things that are in the oils.
Good point. And during my first telesummit called the Essential Oils Revolution back in 2015, I interviewed Dr. Robert Pappas, who runs a third party lab that has virtually tested every oil on the market. And he told me on record, 75% of all oils on the market are adulterated. It's kind of scary, but that's the reality of where we're at. And same thing for CBD, same thing for olive oil. I mean, I'm in the oil world. So to me, CBD, olive oil, essential oil, carrier oil, it's all the same thing. I see the same thing across the board, adulteration, which is essentially, what does that mean? Like when you're buying cinnamon bark, well, some companies to save money, they only have like 5 drops of cinnamon bark, but they have like 100 drops of cassia because cassia is much cheaper to manufacture. It's sweeter, and people don't know the difference because they're not trained. But as a perfumer, you'll smell and be like, this isn't really cinnamon bark. You think you're using something to help balance blood sugar, and you're actually using something that's not going to help you at all. Right. So that's really what's happening here. And also synthetic ingredients. Companies are manufacturing them synthetically, that's why the GCMS report is important. Never buy your stuff on Amazon. Ever, 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 to infinity and beyond. Even a company that you know and trust, I still wouldn't buy it on Amazon because no company is selling their product direct on Amazon. It's always through their warehouse, through their website. If you're buying something on Amazon, someone is selling it privately and you have no idea, even if they could tamper with it. All right. I'm concerned about that. Again, I help people use essential oils to treat and prevent disease. I'm not getting my drugs on Amazon. Okay. That's the other thing. So you want to get it from the source itself. And at the end of the day, you want to see if the oil works for you. Peppermint is a big one because of the high concentration of menthol. Sometimes people just, because of different species, different harvest times, different chemical constituencies, people might have a negative or adverse reaction to a specific essential oil just because their biochemistry cannot essentially mix well. And I call it chemical soup, right? So there could be adverse reactions from a pure essential oil. Doesn't mean the oil is bad. It just means that your body and that oil just doesn't jive. It's same thing like a food. Sometimes you eat food that's just like, it bothers my wife. It doesn't bother me. It's a good food. It's organic. It's healthy. Just something you just don't know. So there's something called the organoleptic evaluation where you have to experience the oil through the six senses. You have to taste it, feel it, touch it intuitively. Like, how does your body react when you're around an essential oil? So before, if someone's interested in buying an essential oil or using them, I'd recommend getting a little kit. Just a little baby kit that costs you $10-15. Get a couple different ones, typically lemon or rosemary or peppermint or some of the ones that are cost effective. And open up the bottle. Smell it. Get a little coconut oil in your hand. Put a drop of the essential oil and rub it on the back of your hand, called the skin patch test. Just like you're not going to clean your carpet with a brand new carpet cleaner, the instructions say first, before you clean, go into an inconspicuous corner and make sure it doesn't stain. Same thing, skin patch test. Before you start applying oils on your tumors and over your body to help heal whatever, just try it. See, does it break out in sores, rashes? That's not a good reaction. That's not detox, by the way. That's another internet myth. That's an adverse reaction. When you experience the essential oil, does it produce some sort of anxiety, some sort of stress? Remember, we're triggering the olfactory system that directly impacts the limbic system, your mood, your memory, your emotions. If you were traumatized, or if you were hurt or abused or had a negative experience then around a situation and the environment had a certain odor, that odor can trigger that reaction to you. So some people might smell an oil and immediately get anxious, and they don't even know, because of suppressed memories, that there was something that happened to them in a negative way. And you could flip that on its head, because people that are using emotional recall therapy right now, they're using essential oils to help track and imprint their brain for healing. So if you're going through a season of healing, a season of well-being right now, and if you've just fallen in love with, let's say, rose oil, well, you're imprinting your brain and the brain will remember rose as something good, empowering, healing. 15 years down the line, you will smell rose, will bring you back to today. In the same way that whenever, I don't ever think about this actually unless I'm interviewing or teaching, but when I run into a woman who wears a certain perfume that reminds me of my first girlfriend 25 years ago, I immediately go back to being a kid. It's like right there. I just think of Becky. And no offense, Becky, if you're listening, I typically don't think of you other than interviewing when I'm trying to create this illustration, but it brings me back. Same way Thanksgiving dinner brings me back to grandma's home, because I love my grandma. She made great Thanksgiving dinner, and it just gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling. So that's the intuitive aspect of it. So just because an oil is pure doesn't mean it's going to be good for you either.
So many things in that last conversation that I want to bring up, and we'll see where we're going to go with it. The first one has to do with you saying that 75% of all oils are adulterated. And I know, don't slap my hand, ordering some of them on Amazon and getting some of them from Whole Foods, that there are definitely, every single bottle of eucalyptus smells differently. So let's talk about, are they putting in that a different oil or why would all the bottles smell different?
Well, there are a couple of reasons why. Harvest, species, variety. I mean, like that's in and of itself. You got Eucalyptus radiata, you got Eucalyptus globulus, you got a different variety of species. Harvest one year versus another year. I mean, anyone that grows tomatoes in their backyard knows that, hey, like my wife says, her mom and dad have been, it's kind of funny, but her mom and dad are master gardeners. Her father is an agri-scientist, and they just remember whatever that was, the spaghetti sauce from the harvest of 1996 just had that yucky taste to it. And when they canned a bunch of that, they just remember, oh, is this 96 sauce? Is this the 1996 version? That like stuck with them. It was just the soil. It was the rain. It was just the chemical constituency. So that accounts to the smell. But look at the ingredients, and hopefully the company's being transparent, especially Whole Foods. I remember going to Whole Foods and looking at their neroli, and they're selling their neroli, which is an expensive oil because it's made from orange blossoms. Again, not orange rind, orange blossoms. And think about the amount of plant matter from the petals of these beautiful smelling, sweet smelling orange blossoms that you have to get a bottle of essential oil. It's extreme. That's a lot of plant matter. You're spending 80, 90, whatever, $100 for a bottle of neroli, depending on where you get it from. Well, Whole Foods was selling it for like $5 or $10. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. I looked at it. Well, the ingredients were almond oil and neroli. You have no idea how much neroli is in it. And of course, that's going to smell completely different because it's mixed. It's diluted. I mean, and I would say at the end of the day, I never would want to buy pre-diluted essential oils because you're paying them for a very cheap carrier oil. And I'd rather just do it myself because I'd rather just have the real deal. And more control, save the money. So that would also account for the smell. And it could be adulterated too. Like I mentioned with the cassia and cinnamon bark example, you just don't know. And if it smells, like once you're around pure essential oils enough, oh, okay, that smells like the right type of eucalyptus. And frankincense, there's 5 or 6 different species of frankincense that people can buy online too. Not online, but online and at stores. They all have unique smells too. Different trees, right? Different harvests, different locations. Frankincense from Somalia will have a completely different chemical constituency than Ethiopia or Oman, right? That's the other aspect of it as well, where they're grown. So you can't always go off of your sniffer, but that could help, especially when you're going off of the intuitive aspect. I think I can't stress that enough. Like you have to want this. You have to feel good. And we're looking for negative. We really are. We're trying to measure if you're getting any sort of negative reaction. No reaction is a good reaction when it comes to essential oils, by the way. Anything adverse at all, stop. Just immediately stop. It's not worth it. It's not going to do good for you right now.
Well, I'm all about that intuition as well. And like you said, the skin patch test, like testing things out. And yes, the food conversation. There's also, like you were mentioning, food's good for you, but not good for your wife. And, and as you were talking about the emotional recall therapy, and which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, I would also say the same thing. There are people in fact, I just got someone's consultation forms today, and I know a little bit about this person going in, but I noticed that she's got gastrointestinal issues, and she's got some emotional things she wants to work on, and that sort of mirrored back at me that exact, like, well, that's what's causing some of those gastrointestinal issues, is some of these emotions that
Yep.
in our digestive tract, which, because that's how we absorb life, it's how we're digesting life, and if we're not able to digest life easily, then we may have digestion that is off, and sort of that emotional component, because that is all about what I do and try to also teach people. So that intuition part, I love that. Absolutely right in line, because not all of those different therapies are going to be right for each person. It has to resonate with you on a frequency that you're able to receive it. It has to resonate with where you are on your journey of healing. And there are many factors that determine that. I want to go back for a second, because you mentioned using them in your foods. And now you have a book. I want to talk about your books on using it in your diet. So, obviously nutrition is a huge deal for me. I've been talking about nutrition for 25, 30 years. I work directly in a functional medicine clinic, and I work with Jeannie Peters, who is by far, in my opinion, one of the best nutritionists, because she uses homeopathy, flower essences, essential oils, as well as food as medicine, bioidentical hormones, everything natural as you can, sustainable gardening. I mean, really, it's the whole package, intentional living, all that good stuff. So she always has dirt under her fingers. But when we're talking about using a drop of cilantro instead of using cilantro, now I'm guessing that there is, because the drop of cilantro is such a concentrated amount of cilantro, now minus any potential small amount of fiber you might get from the cilantro if you have it in its natural form. Let's talk about the benefits of using the cilantro oil instead of using actual cilantro.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And by the way, for those of you who are like my wife and you're all about conversions and recipes, it's typically 1 to 2 drops of essential oil per teaspoon of a dried herb or spice. So you could simply put 1 or 2 teaspoons of lemon zest if it calls for that. If it calls for 1 teaspoon of lemon zest, or 1 teaspoon of cilantro, or 1 teaspoon of curry, you could easily just replace that with 1 to 2 drops. We like to use both. Herbs bring their own subtle flavor, dried herbs that are different than the essential oil, but the reality is the potency is exceptional. I mean, you cannot compare. I don't know anyone who's actually been able to prove it. I've heard everything from 1 drop of peppermint equals the potency of 20 tea bags of peppermint. Like, I've heard all kinds of crazy claims. No research, by the way, to substantiate it, but one thing I do know, we actually teach this in our masterclass in our books, how to use them for culinary purposes. Herbs are great. I mean, herbs have a very nice, subtle therapeutic effect, but we have to remember the herb has been dehydrated, so there's virtually no essential oil into it. So you're getting just very minor therapeutic efficacy from the components that survive that. And there are some healing components that survive the dehydration process, especially if it's dehydrated at a low temp. And you get, you're right, the little fiber. But ultimately, though, we want things in this whole form. And so that's why we like to add herbs and essential oils, which, by the way, I don't want to blow people's bubbles, because I know supplement, it's a $1 billion+ industry. I mean, hundreds of billions of dollars at this point. I don't want to burst the bubble on supplements, but you want to reconstitute your supplements with essential oils too, especially turmeric. Everyone's on turmeric right now. Like, what about turmeric oil? I mean, what happens when you dehydrate turmeric into what we see as turmeric? I mean, you're missing the chemical components that are in the essential oil. So we try to combine both. And we find that when you do, the body really responds exceptionally well to it. So we do like to use both. It's usually not one or the other kind of mentality. But as an herbalist, my wife's mom and my wife, there's some risks to herbs too. You want to replace your herbs every year. Like, herbs don't last forever. Especially, you never also want to dump, I'm guilty of it. You have a pot you're cooking something on the stove and a lot of steam, and you just get your herb container, you just tap, tap, tap. Well, what happens is the steam ends up getting micro moisture droplets into your herb container. You cut it, you shut the lid, you put it back. Well, that's increasing oxidation. That's causing your herbs to go rancid. People don't realize that stuff. That's why you always put herbs in your hand away from steam, and then you put that into, or you use a teaspoon, like little things like that you don't even think about. Same thing for essential oils. Oxygen's not our friend. If you want to extend the shelf life of essential oil, you don't keep the bottle open all the time. If you're using essential oils regularly, like every day, the shelf life is only a couple of years. But if they're locked up in a nice, cool, dark area where the lid's on for 99.9% of the time, you only open up the lid just to get a drop or two, that could last a decade or two. But oils don't last forever. The potency, because of oxidation. Oxygen is not our friend, by the way. So just some kind of little herbs and spices and oil tips that we've learned over the years, but we love them. I mean, we really do, and they're a great combo together.
Well, I was thinking of fresh cilantro and fresh herbs, not dried, but that whole the whole conversation was great because it reminded me. And yes, turmeric oil, yes, of course, concentration would make sense. And when you were talking about adding a drop of cilantro oil instead of using cilantro, my mind first went to, well, that's no fun. I love cilantro and I love the fresh herb and I love the way it looks and I love the way it feels in my mouth. But then I realized, the oil is going to be so much more concentrated. And if cilantro is great for detoxing, the concentration of oil is probably more potent on the detox ability of cilantro than the few stems that I'm going to use in the guacamole. So that combination is great. And thank you for slapping my hand in this way. You don't even know that I'm such the cook and even have a cooking show. And I'm, so that I am totally guilty of that. However, I will say that none of my herbs last long enough.
There you go.
Right. I mean, so I know at least I'm using them all the time. And so I'm constantly replacing them. Nothing sits there that long, but I am totally guilty because of course it's convenient and I don't know how much I'm going to need. And I never measure anything. I just throw it in the pot, stir it up and taste it. And if I like it, I leave it. But I am absolutely doing the wrong thing there with the steam. And I've known that. But, that's one of the things that there are many things that we do sometimes that we recognize that this isn't probably the best way to do this, but I do so many other good things. And at this point, I'm not going to be concerned. So I'm going to take the slight risk with this behavior when I live pretty freaking cleanly otherwise. So, but for everybody who is cooking and if that is happening to you and you don't use your spices as much as I do and you're not replacing them often, absolutely get them out of the steam. So we're going to have you back. It's just not even a question. So if you're willing to come back on the show, because there's too much information that I want to help people to learn, to educate, to use. I mean, I'm thinking about my medicine cabinet. What does your medicine cabinet look like?
A lot of essential oils and roller bottles and homeopathics, and we got some stuff. I mean, we set it up. We set it up like bug bite blend and sleepy time blend. Everything's lit. My wife has a love affair with the label maker. She's open. She had admitted it. Thought she was committing adultery on me. It was the label maker. It was seriously. It's everywhere. She brings a label maker with her when she travels everywhere, and she jests about that. Everything's labeled. Everything is preset. We're ready. We got 4 kids. We're ready for the apocalypse. We love it. Tummy issues, whatever. I mean, you name it, we got it. And it's just over the years developing these fun little blends. We have our skin healing serum in the refrigerator because, certain things you want to stay cool. And whenever you use water, and that's another thing with DIY preparations, water, I mean, things go rancid. I mean, that's why you're not going to find hydrosols, which are basically the floral water byproduct of essential oils, which are very safe to ingest. They're lovely. It's what a lot of your perfumes are based off of. You're not going to buy a lot of that because they go bad. It goes rancid. I mean, water will cause bacterial overgrowth. So if you want to extend the shelf life of your DIY products, you put them in the fridge, especially if there's water in it. So yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, our homemade soaps and lotions and potions and I mean, everything we do as much as we can. But to have that at our disposal is great. And to see our kids, my daughter's 3 years old and before she goes to bed, we snuggle with her. We read a story. We put, tuck her in. She's like, oil. She wants her oils. And we get the roller bottle. We rub her back. We rub her little feet, give her a little massage. And that's just our way of life.
I love it. And I also, when I get very proud of my medicine cabinet, although we've recently moved, so it looks a little more it looks a little more overwhelming now because it's all literally in one big thing above the toilet, it's hanging on the wall. But between all the homeopathy and the essential oils and a little bit of CBD and just, everything homeopathic, flower essences. Yeah, I just figured you'd be the same and more, of course. So I want to talk about how we can start helping people to know what to do, how to do, where to make some changes. And I know you don't represent any one company, which I love. I actually have started working with a company, although I'm nowhere near ready because I always said I will never, ever, ever do an MLM again unless I own it. Well, I might reconsider that. But in the meantime, I still have so much focus that I want to learn more and more and more than I already do. And I know you've got a ton of information and books and things like that. So why don't we start with, where can someone go first? Where should we go after this conversation into your library and wealth of knowledge? And what book should we get first?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, first, we have a database, a ton of free resources at naturallivingfamily.com. Tons, 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 tons. We have 2 books, and we invite you to check them out. The Healing Power of Essential Oils, international bestseller. Still the #1 ranked aromatherapy book on Amazon, in addition to getting all the other awards. It's wonderful. It's in like 10 different languages. It gives you everything you need, and it helps you start now. Again, The Healing Power of Essential Oils, available everywhere books are sold. The other book we have is a newer book. It's a diet book that people kept on asking us, like you asked us, like, what, lifestyle and food and how we do it. And people learn that my wife wins Mrs. Georgia, a competition that she just won a couple of months ago at the age of 41, competing with girls half her age. Like, how did she win swimsuit, right? We kind of show you her protocol and what she did and how she used essential oils in food. That's called the Essential Oils Diet. And once you're plugged in, we have a lot of great resources for you. We have a masterclass, an Essential Oils for Abundant Living masterclass. We give people free viewing of that whenever they want, just to get a chance to see and learn. That's, again, available on our website. And just poke around. I mean, ask us questions. Go click the Contact Us form and just say, hey, I want to learn this. We have a great team devoted to supporting you, because at the very end of the day, we want to clear away the confusion and we want to empower people. Like, we've had over 500,000 people watch our masterclass for free, for crying out loud. It's our ministry. It's what we do. And I'll leave you with this. I mean, essential oils I don't believe they're the end all, for sure. I mean, you can't live a fast food lifestyle and expect essential oils to cure you. It's like 1 step forward, but 2 steps back. But essential oils may be the missing link. If you found yourself plateaued, at whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to get off of a mental health drug, or if you're trying to balance your blood sugar, cholesterol, if you've done everything, but you're like plateaued, maybe that's where essential oils can help you. Or at the very least, I'll leave you with this. We haven't even discussed the toxins in our body care. Whoa. We're talking linked to autoimmunity, cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, obesity, triclosan, parabens, phthalates, all the things that you hear about. It's legit. It's proven by research. The World Health Organization acknowledges this stuff, but it's still in our products in America, which, by the way, most countries don't allow that stuff. Start making your own. And the first challenge I'll leave you is hand sanitizer, which is a completely useless product that's filled with a pesticide engineered product known as triclosan. I mean, it is bad news bears. You can make your own. Really, really simple with essential oils. Just 10 drops of essential oil, 10 drops of aloe, 10 drops of an organic grain alcohol, and you mix it with water with a spray bottle. Done. 10, 10, 10. Right? So recipes in our books. But that kind of stuff, start to think outside the box and start to minimize the toxins that are in the air and are in our body, and watch what happens. Your life will change.
I'm so glad you said that about the hand sanitizer. I don't touch it. I stay away from it. Someone offers it to me. I say, no, thank you. I swear it's caused staph infections in hospitals and people, and created new strands of things we can't hit because of the chemicals. And I love that you just gave us the recipe. I create my own mouthwash. I create my own, all of that, what you're talking about. So I love that. And I'm can't wait to dig into the essential oil diet. And everyone go to naturallivingfamily.com. Again, naturallivingfamily.com to check out the free resources and order both books, The Healing Power of Essential Oils and The Essential Oils Diet from Dr. Z. Well, we didn't even get to talk about emotional recall therapy, and I want to talk about this documentary that you're doing and all the wonderful things that have evolved from this. But I really needed to spend a little bit of time with essential oils because I use them. I want people to use them. I want them to get off their drugs and medications if they can, live a cleaner life that's healthier, and know that they have the power to make that kind of change. And I haven't, in the 5 years I've been podcasting, never done an entire show about essential oils. Like I said, it's been a challenge. I even went to Natural Products Expo, met a company, told the person, everyone else, people can be on my show when I ask them, or sometimes I have some sponsored episodes, but literally I was in search of someone to talk about essential oils, and I found a company and they never got back to me. And I thought, well, I guess you're not that interested. So I've been hesitant to have on just anybody who sells essential oils, because if they're not specialized in the way that you are and using the kinds of sciences that I appreciate to look into something on a truth-seeking basis, then then it's just a sales pitch for whatever the product is. And I want to talk about the actual power of essential oils. So I really appreciate you being on the show today. I know you've got a wealth of information. I'd love to have you back. And thank you again for all your information. And everyone go to Healing Power of Essential Oils. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's the book. Go to naturallivingfamily.com.